Okay, for this video, I am with Sam Fatzinger, amazing lady. She and her husband put together this book, and I'm talking with her today. And she put together a book to help Catholics, anyone really, but it's especially targeted at Catholics, a guide to spending less and living more. So welcome, Sam. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I really liked reading this book because I noticed you give some just really down-to-earth suggestions that people can actually live with. So it's not just the whole do these things and a person looks and goes, well, I'm done, because there's no way that's going to happen. So I remember reading in the book that you said a lot of people kept suggesting to you to write a book, to take the skills that you had and the techniques you'd used and like to put them in writing. And what really prompted you to go from making this book just sort of this idea that had been mulled around to an actual book?
So it really is the Holy Spirit, because we actually tried to write a book about 3 years ago, and every time I sat down to write it, even though I would do it early in the morning before the kids were up or late at night when they were asleep, something always happened. And it was really a struggle. And I was like, Lord, if you want me to do this, it should just be like flowing out of me and just, the Holy Spirit, and I should just be writing and writing and writing. So as much as I kept trying and trying, it just really wasn't working. And I thought, well, why do people keep telling us we should do this? So we had a little, 2-year-old at the time, and we were just like, you know what, now it's just not the time, because everything fell apart. And then, of course, my 16-year-old at the time accidentally deleted all the work I had done. I was like, okay, it's just not the time, Lord, and I'm just going to put this back on the shelf. So, move forward about 2 years, and my littlest one is about to turn 5. And so, I'm not pregnant and I'm not nursing, and I have a little bit more time. I'm not changing diapers every, 3 hours. And so again, I was just like, Lord, what do you want me to do? I have a very strong personality. I'm very extroverted. I'm very, I love people. I love working in my parish. I love planning events. But, Lord, is there more that you're calling me to do? And so I said, if you have something you want me to do, Lord, you're just going to have to come right out and tell me, because you always do. You're always good about telling me what direction I should take in my life. And it was just always easy when I was pregnant and nursing, because your job was to take care of the children and take care of your husband and take care of your home. So I was checking on my Facebook Messenger for something, and somehow I hit a button and a bunch of old messages had popped up from people who weren't my friends, but who had sent me messages. So I didn't even realize that was a thing. And I had found emails from years past, because 4.5 years ago, we were interviewed by Washington Post. And that story went viral. And so there's all sorts of people messaging us, all the way from Argentina. And just like, oh, we saw it, because of course when Washington Post prints something, then everybody else kind of takes it and reprints it, and the Daily Watch, all different places. So we were getting messages from, hey, we're in California, we want to do a reality TV show about your family, and hey this and hey that, and we were like, whoa, what just happened? So I was kind of laughing at all these old messages, and I found one from Ave Maria Press saying, we saw your story in the Washington Post, and we were wondering if you would like to write a book with us. So I told my husband, like, wow, maybe this is our chance to do this again. And I didn't realize at the time what a blessing it is to have the support and the encouragement and the guidance of a publisher. It is a game changer. And so he said, if you want to do it, that's fine. I don't want to do it, but you can do it. So I actually just pushed the button and called the person back, and I said, hi, this is Sam Fatzinger. I got a message from you, over a year ago. Are you still interested? And she was like, yes, let's talk, let's pursue this, let me send you the information, because we had never done anything like this. So Ave Maria has been very patient with us with this new venture. We have no idea, they're trying to get us to, up our social media and up our presence and do all sorts of things, which, when you have all these kids, and I don't have that talent, it was very difficult. So they have been amazing to work with. So people who want to write a book, I would just ask tell them to pray that God will send them someone. And there is, self-publishing and stuff, but I don't think we could have ever done this without Ave Maria Press, because they have really told us step by step, how to do this. And it's been a really great experience this past year. And little did we know, a month after we said yes, then the pandemic hit. And, when they told us our release date for the book, we had no idea what was going to be happening in the world. But, Ave Maria is like, what a perfect time for a financial book to come out, because, so many people are struggling.
Yeah, that's so true. How important, how crucial do you think it is for parents to instill good spending and saving habits in their children, especially with what's going on?
Yes, I think it should come second nature. I feel as if we all tend to spoil our children a little too much, and they start to expect things. Expect the Slurpee after soccer practice. Expect we're going to grandma's house, we passed by McDonald's, we're going to pick up something. Expect that when we go to the beach, we're going to, go miniature golfing and go to the movies and go to the ice cream shop, where that kind of tends to, you're putting them up for false expectations, because as adults, they need to learn to, say no to themselves, say no to their desires, to be stronger, to, who knows what the finances of the future will be, to make sure that they're learning to budget. And yes, there's so many times for those wonderful things. Grandma takes them out to get an ice cream cone, or when we do go to the beach, we do one big dinner out as a whole family. But to have them expect that, it's really damaging them. I think that they're going to grow up just thinking, well, this is what we do after soccer practice. We always get a Slurpee after soccer practice. And this is what we do when we're at the pool. We buy all this food at the snack bar. So I have always, mainly out of necessity, have taught our kids that, no, we pack our food, or, there's been many, many times that we're all hot and hungry and tired. And I would love to pull through the, McDonald's drive-through or the Chick-fil-A drive-through. But I'm like, no, we're going to be home in 10 minutes. We can do it. Or I have snacks in the car, or, we just have to kind of start dying to ourselves in these little ways. And I always tell them, if you're strong in the little ways, it helps you grow stronger when you have the big temptations in life. So those are the little, small suggestions that we have tried to do. And I used to tell the kids, when we drive by McDonald's, it's a good thing we're not rich, because we would be unhealthy and we would be poor and we would be, fat, because we would be going to McDonald's every time, we drive by, because mom wants those French fries and milkshake just as much as you do. But we have to remember, we have stuff at home. Or, one time we went to the beach, and this very nice priest, we were going to daily mass, and this nice priest, who was very young, was so happy to see a young family, because most of his congregation were all retired and elderly. And so he offered to take the kids out for ice cream that night. So we were so excited, and the kids' eyes almost fell out of their heads when, they're putting scoop after scoop after scoop on their cone. And, it was probably like $4 or $5 a cone for each kid. They were so appreciative and so excited. It was a special event. And they remember that now. And that was, over 10 years ago. Instead of being like, I didn't want this flavor. Oh, they didn't give me enough sprinkles. Or I wanted another scoop. Or why can't we do that again tomorrow? It was a really special treat for them. So I also, now I know, as I have 4 children married, that what amazing spouses my kids are. They never have these high expectations for their spouses to be like, well, we need to go on this fancy trip, or we need to buy this fancy furniture, or we need to go out to this fancy restaurant. They're so appreciative in so many ways to their spouses, because they have not really low expectations, but they don't expect to be handed everything on a silver platter.
Now, I noticed you made a good point just then about when you be in the car driving somewhere and oh, well, let's get something, and be just a few more minutes, or, the whole having snacks in the car. So in this process, there's some planning ahead that can actually help out in situations, as far as planning ahead, saying, okay, we're going to this place, we're going to be gone this long, we'll have some snacks in the car to get us by.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I always have I try to always have, a case of water bottles, or, snacks that won't go bad in the car, pretzels or goldfish fish or something. Of course, our car looks like we have 14 children. It's a little, it's a little interesting when you open the door and, water bottles fall out and you go to sit down and the Cheerios and the pretzels. So that is something maybe for my future, to have a clean car. Although, but that's just like the pressure is off. When they're hungry, I'll be like, here's a granola bar or whatever. So we try to have that in the car at all times.
Yeah, it makes me think of kind of the classic, diaper bag scenario where it's like, packing the diaper bag, it's like, what all can I stuff in here right now to save you later?
Yes.
Were your best money saving ideas and habits you got from your parents, someone else, or your own creation?
Mainly from my parents, and then mainly out of necessity. So I was the youngest of 9, and my parents were much older. And so, like, my mom grew up in depression. And when I was growing up, I never knew what I was missing. It was just the way we lived. You ate dinner as a family. You ate, nice, simple meals. You always had like your meat, your potato starch and your vegetable, side salad or whatever. And that was just, I can't remember ever, under the first 13 years of my life, ever going out to eat to McDonald's or whatever. First of all, they were just building them. I'm that old. But it was just, I remember when they took me to this Mexican restaurant for my birthday, I was probably like 15, and it was a really big deal, but I just never grew up with that. And that whole generation never grew up with that. Now our kids are going to fast food restaurants like weekly and daily. And I always kind of tell people, try to make sure you instill these lessons in your kids before they're 15. Because once they turn 16, they're just flitting by here. Oh, we're going to go to McDonald's for this. We're going to go to Panera for this drink. And then we're going to go to, when we're at the mall, we're going to go here and get something. And of course, who doesn't love Chick-fil-A? And that's, you almost feel like you're doing something good for the world when you go to Chick-fil-A because we love it so much and they're so wonderful. But, I have had to be a little less strict about those rules during the pandemic because my college kids or in teenagers, that's then the only thing they could do is like meet, outside at the park and everybody, bring a Chick-fil-A meal or a milkshake or something because everything's been canceled. But I do try to teach them that. And because, this is your money. I've never would give my kids money to go out, to spend it on fast food, especially when we have a refrigerator full of food. And I also try to, this is my oldest daughter's advice is just for her and her husband. She tries to have like one special like meal or cut of meat or something special in her pantry or her refrigerator so that when her and her husband are tired and they want to do a date night, and of course, again, pandemic, not being able to do that, they can go and have that, she would never spend, $5.99 on a cut of meat, but that was their special date night dinner. And because she had that in her refrigerator or freezer or pantry or whatever, those special foods that she normally didn't buy, they're less likely to, call the local restaurant to get food delivered. So that was, a really good advice because then she's less likely to just be like, oh, forget it, we're just going to order out or something.
Okay. Do you recommend this book to be read by a couple together or each individually?
I always say individually. I think reading couple, that's hard. I love when my husband reads to me, but this isn't one of those type of books that you want to lay in bed and listen to someone read. I mean, you might say, oh, honey, listen to this. This is really good advice. As I was doing, because when a couple weeks ago, I finally got a copy of the book. Like, I had never read it in full. We were chapter here, chapter there. They send you like the proof online, but I can't sit in front of a computer and read. I need to hold it in my hand. I need to circle and highlight and arrow and everyone was making fun of me because I was just like curled up on the couch reading the book and highlighting and they're like, Mom, this is weird. You're reading your own book. I'm like, I've never read it before. And this is really good. Like this turned out like I agree with everything this couple says. Wow, this is amazing. But I would say, some people have been buying it for their Cana couples group. Some people have been buying it for their women's group to do as a study. I think it's a great book for everybody. I think you'll get tips. Also, you can go to our family website that we're trying to start. It's fatsfam.com. And there's 3 chapters that we couldn't fit in the book. So once Ave gave us the go, I was doing what the Holy Spirit initially thought would do, and I was writing and writing and writing and writing. So I finally persuaded my husband to pitch in and help me because we've been married for 32 years. He knows how I think. He knows how I write and talk, which is fast and loud and a lot. And he also is the money guy. So when people ask me questions about, mutual funds and retirement funds, I'm like, I have no idea. I don't even know how to use the ATM machine. So don't ask me any questions about money. I would ask him to help. And so what would happen was, and I think even you said this in your first post about our book, was it sounds like I'm the one who's speaking the most, because the way Ave set it up is, Sam's talking, Rob's talking, Sam and Rob are talking. Well, what would happen is I would write for a whole hour, and then I would give it to him to just kind of edit and, what I'm trying to say. Did I say it? And he would spend 3 hours fixing what I was writing because he's my husband and because he knows what I'm trying to say. So he really did most of everything. And I am more like, I want to talk to people. I want to do interviews. I want to do podcasts. I love, 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 love that. So we make a good team, a good balance. But he really was like, the numbers and all those important details.
I did notice as I was reading along that, when it came to like sort of the tips and the talking and the kind of relating type stuff, you were very strong there. And it was great because as I'm reading, I'm thinking to myself, man, I so get this.
Yeah. And it is little things. This is not one of those, books written by these financial advisors. This is just a family who's doing it, who's living it, who's still struggling with it. And like I said, so we had written so much. And so Ave Maria Press decided to have these 3 free downloadables on their website. And they gave us permission to put them on our website. So if you're buying the book directly from Ave, because that means you have an account, then definitely go over and click over and push a button and you get these free downloads. There are 3 chapters. 1 chapter's on how we do weddings, one's how we do college, and one's how we feed our family. They're just little pages of great information, especially for people with older kids trying to navigate college and weddings and things. But they also are on our website, and you don't need to have an account. So you can just go to fatsfam.com and you want to just find free downloadables. And they're just, they're, I think, about 4 or 5 pages each.
What is your hope for this book?
So we weren't sure what God was asking us to do with this book. But once it was published, and now it's being released this Friday, so exciting, we have friends who are authors, and they have told us, this book is just an opportunity for you to get out and share with families basic things that we have tried to do, that we are still trying to do, and basic things that we would love to share with other families, like what we want our kids to do, and what people come up to us like, oh, I wish we could afford another child. And I try to explain to them, like, I've been a stay-at-home mom, all of our lives, and you find ways to, you had asked me about some saving tips. Most of them I learned from my mom, but other ones, like, I learned because we couldn't afford things. So, wherever you live, you kind of find things in your area that you're living in, like when you go to a certain grocery store. I am very bold, and I'm not embarrassed of, saying, hi, my mom kind of teased and used to always tell me, always become friends with the butcher. Well, Aldi doesn't have a butcher, but, getting to know your environment. If you always shop at the same store, kind of start looking around. Like, we do most of our shopping at Aldi, but there are some things that Aldi doesn't have. So I go to the expensive grocery store and I'm like, how can they possibly be asking, $4 more for strawberries when the strawberries I got at Aldi are fine? But for people who don't have an Aldi or Lidl or a really good discount grocery store, ask your butcher or ask the meat department or whatever, like, when do you put meat on sale, or when's a good time? Because I have just befriended all these people, and I always have in the grocery store. In somehow it comes up that, oh, you're the usually because I'll have a toddler with me, or you're the lady with 14 kids. I still to this day, the produce guy at our big expensive grocery stores, he's always like, "You're that lady, aren't you?" Because I go at like 6 a.m, and he'd be like, "You're that lady with all those kids, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yes, and I have grandchildren now too." So, but finding out, so our grocery store about 7:30 in the morning marks down meat almost 50% that is going to expire in the next day. So it's not expired yet, because if it was already expired, they have to discard it. So sometimes I'll hit the jackpot. Other times it's only a couple different things. And you also have to watch, because, a $9.99 cut of meat, half price, is still, a lot of money per pound. So you have to learn how to, navigate pound and ounces and that kind of stuff. But when I find, the great deal, I load up my cart, and we have a big freezer, and I just make sure it's all goes in there. And that's how we cook. So it's not like, oh, this week the kids want this, this, and this. It's like, this week we have chicken in the freezer, ground beef in the freezer, pork chops in the freezer, a ham, and leftovers, or breakfast for dinner, or Taco Tuesday, or, simple fly. I've never been fancy meal makers, because, we've always had little kids, and anything that we can get them to eat is pure joy. And then a couple years ago, our three college boys moved out, and that was a huge hole in my heart. They moved 20 minutes away, but they all moved out. But our cooking has just so changed, because they not only would they eat a lot at dinner, they would always eat leftovers. They'd eat leftovers at midnight. They'd eat leftovers for breakfast. They would take leftovers to work for lunch. So we have been really navigating our cooking and what the younger six like. And we actually, especially during the pandemic, we're doing leftovers like twice a week, because there's nothing worse to me than throwing out food. And so what has happened recently is we have adopted about 6 widow men at our church who bring them like jars of soup or jars of chili or whatever we've made, so they love it, because they're so happy someone's cooking, because they're widows. And I'm happy. I'm not throwing out. And my husband, he laughs. He's like, "Okay, I just made a huge pot of soup for your boyfriends at church." So I show up with bags, because we have, after Mass at our church, all the old men and women, but a lot of the older men who don't have wives to go home to, will go, and they'll have coffee together, and they'll just visit. So I show up with my grocery bags, and they get all excited. So that's kind of helped us. But we just have to adjust our cooking and our buying. But that's really, you just have to find. So at this expensive grocery store, they also have an aisle that has clearance stuff. And maybe it's seasonal, maybe it's dented cans. And my mom, when I was growing up, that's how she would, get dented cans for a nickel. Sometimes they didn't even have labels on them. So she's like, "We're having something mysterious tonight. Open the can. Oh, beans or fruit cocktail, or whatever." So I just buy them to have on my pantry. I try to just buy the things that we actually would have buy if it was full price, not too much strange stuff. Sometimes I'll see something that'll be like, "Oh, we've always wanted to try this, but it's always been way over our budget." So I will get it when it's $1.39, and we're like, "Oh yeah, that was kind of fun." And definitely treats for the kids. After a season or whatever cereal brand has a new cover, like whatever cartoon characters on Cheerios that week, whatever, whenever they get a new one, we can get huge boxes of cereal for, 69 cents. And I'll just buy them all up. That's a huge treat, because we don't usually buy a lot of boxed cereal. So you never know. But, with the stores that you shop at, just find those places. Even places like TJ Maxx and Target and Walmart, they have clearance places in their store. I don't go to Walmart often, but the one near us, I was getting tags for our car, and I bumped into this clearance rack, and it was stuff like leftover from Christmas that they must have found after their big Christmas sale, because that usually goes really fast. I was getting big stars for a Christmas tree for like 39 cents. I was getting kids' clothes for my grandchildren for, 10 cents and 30 cents. It was ridiculous. I was having so much fun. But, just look and don't stop being embarrassed about wanting to save money, and make it a game. Like, wow, look how much I spent or saved. And then you can always, if you don't need to budget, if you don't have a problem with money, which I don't know anybody who's doesn't always can be concerned about money. You can either have too much or too little. But when you are financially stable and financially independent, then look for ways to help others. Because my husband and I never could, to tithe was a huge sacrifice. But now, because we're more financially stable, we can help others. There's a family in our parish we have just a heart for, and whenever we have our stimulus check or anything, we are able to help them like everyone used to help us. And I have a couple, moms at our parish who I just look at them and I just like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I used to do it. But, they get out of the car with the 7 kids under 10. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I used to look like. And, I try to tell them over and over again, if you ever need anything, just let me know, because I probably have it at my house, snow boots or soccer cleats or something. So don't go out and buy it. Just let me know. And they have, and I love that. So I'm always telling people to ask for help. And so I loved at Christmas time, one of the moms called and said, you don't happen to have, a size 4 girl's Christmas dress laying around? And I was like, I don't think so, but let me look, because my youngest daughter is 15. And I knew I didn't, because I also have, 3 granddaughters. So anything I'd have that was worthwhile has gone to them. But I had more fun jumping in the car, running to TJ Maxx and finding this $12 red fluffy Christmas dress for this little girl who has 5 brothers. And I just drove by and put it on the doorstep. I didn't say anything. And I just felt like Santa Claus. I'm like, this is what being able to bless other people has been like. This is what people have been doing for us for, 20 years. And my kids always had treats on the porch and things on the porch. We used to live on a really busy road down the street. And when we found our dream house where we're living now, that was on a foreclosure, we were moving, and my older kids were like, I had 7 kids in that little teeny house. And they're like, but Mom, will our guardian angels know where we moved? Because people would drop off bikes, or they'd call us and say, hey, I'm leaving a wedding reception and I've got trays of food. Do you guys want it? And we'd be like, yeah. So don't ever be ashamed to say yes. And people were always so generous. People who didn't even know us, because we lived on this busy road, and everyone, oh, that's the house with all those kids. So they'd be like, someone in that house has got to be wearing, a pair of size 6 patent leather girl church shoes. And my kids just learned to love and accept that. And I kind of joke about that with hand-me-downs. I don't know what people's hang up is with hand-me-downs. I, being the youngest of 9, loved hand-me-downs, because I was like, oh, I got on my big sister's, cool jacket, or I got on my, my brother's baseball cap. But my daughter, who's the oldest, we had so many generous friends, and she was so cute. She'd be like, come bopping downstairs and like, Mommy, look what I have on. I have on Caitlin's dress, and I have on Kelly's shorts, and I have on, our neighbor gave me these flip-flops. And she was so proud of what she was walking around with, all of her favorite people's wardrobe. And instead of saying, oh yeah, Grandma bought me this outfit from Walmart. I mean, it was so much more exciting. She bounced around all day, and and she loved when we would go to church on Sunday, and the little girl who was like 3 years older would come up and be like, oh, you have on my favorite dress. I love that dress. I especially love how it swirls around. And, that's a party. You're wearing a party, instead of just being like, oh, we're going to go to the store and buy all new clothes or whatever. And also, as mom of 9 boys, I do not buy clothes, because in 5 minutes, they're going to stain it or rip it or tear it. And that way I'm just like, that's fine. Just throw it away, or I'll try to get the stain out. I'm not like, oh my gosh, I spent $14.99 on that shirt and you just ruined it. So as a mom of a big, busy family, I just totally disregard that stress of having to wear. And we've always had more than enough clothes and shoes and everything. And as a dad from our parish once said, when I was at the church nursery, he's like, I've never met anybody who had 10 kids. So again, this is 15 years ago. And he said, and your kids don't look like they're from a big family. And I'm like, what did you expect? He's like, I don't know. I never knew a big family. I was one of 2 kids, and I don't know, they're not dirty and they always look nice. I was like, well, like, thank you for the compliment, but it's just, our misconceptions. So, and there's so many fun things now. I actually had to give up going to thrift stores for Lent because I was having so much fun. My husband's like, stop buying the grandchildren all this stuff. And my daughter-in-laws and my daughter's like, Mom, we're good. We don't need any more clothes. And I was like, but it was, it was 50 cents at the thrift store. It's so cute. It's brand new. It has tags on it. So just being, be open and be creative. And again, even if you don't need to, as we say, save and spend, just try, maybe because you're saving here, you can put that money towards a trip or put that money towards your new car. Or in our house, we never had money sitting in our wallets or banks for more than a day. My husband was like, oh, we paid off the car. And then the next day the dishwasher breaks, or yay, we just, paid off our son's doctor bills, and the next day the car transmission breaks. So God is very good about keeping us humble and on our knees and always asking him for help and guidance.
Has your church always had programs for helping people? I noticed you talked about that in your book about the various programs that your church would have, such as the lending closet and the meals for new moms, that sort of thing, which is fantastic. I love that your parish has that. Is that something that's always been there at your parish?
It's more the people. It's not even so much, it's the people that go to our parish. So we have this thing called a house on the hill, and it's there for, you donate stuff and they organize it and put it nice in this big, like, double wide trailer. And then needy families or other people can come. And it's one of our ministries. But it's more the people, the nursery group. Again, this year has been crazy. We don't have a play group anymore. We don't have a church nursery anymore. But we have a network. And so when there's a new woman in the parish who has a baby, one of us will be like, oh, this is so exciting. Would you like meals? For the woman who says, no, thank you, you're crazy. Because even if you just have to put it in the freezer for a rainy day, or, I tell people on my best day, when I am totally on my game, I need a meal. So I've asked a couple people, I'll be like, do you need a meal? She's like, no, thank you. My husband really likes to do the cooking. I'm like, okay, how about I say you need meals and I put my address down and everyone can drop them off at my house and I'll let you know how they taste it. But I just think it's great for the kids to kind of grow up. I mean, my kids would sit by the window and be like, to this day, my 31-year-old and my 30-year-old and my 28-year-old, and they'll laugh and like, remember when Miss Geraldine brought that case of corn dogs from Sam's Club? I mean, they thought they died and went to heaven. They had never seen anything so beautiful. That was, Robert is 21 now. So that was when our Robert was born. That they remember sitting at the door and she's opening her trunk and, they've got boxes of, and then I was on bed rest after when I was miscarrying one of my children, and people were bringing meals every day. And it was such a gift to, I hope it was a gift to them to get to serve, but it was such a gift to us. And my kids were learning service. We laugh because I'll be making a meal and they're like, oh, who had a baby, or, and we have a prayer ministry. Like when someone, especially my heart always goes out to people who are in labor, because I always had such horrible labors and pregnancies. We pray for people. So my kids would come down and I'll have a candle lit in the kitchen in the middle of the counter, and they'll be like, oh, who's having a baby? Or, who are we praying for? Is someone sick or someone dying? Those little things that we teach our kids, it's all about the community. So I live in a town that is really all like that, not just our church, but people are always sharing and caring. And, when the article went out in the Washington Post about us debt-free, retiring early, sending kids to college debt-free, so many comments were so negative, like, oh, these people just, expect their church to provide for them and they suck off society. And I'm like, I'm sorry that your neighbors don't automatically help you. Like, I grew up in this town. I've lived here for 53 years, and we all have each other's back. And I just assume that all towns and neighborhoods are like that. And of course, our parish is a heartbeat of that. But, so many people are so caring. And that's what we need to do. We need to especially during this time of pandemic, we need to all look out for each other. You know, there's a lot of people who are nervous or who need something. So, you know, we try to check on our elderly neighbors. I mean, it's just called common sense. It's, you know, it's great that the Christians have this love of others, but a lot of people are just too embarrassed or shy, or like, oh, I don't want to bother anyone. Well, that's how we spread Christ's love, is, you know, passing it on. I love the whole, you know, pass it on mentality. Like, you know, when you're when you're in the line and someone pays for your meal, that's all about, like, just keep it going, keep being kind, because kindness spreads kindness. And that's where our kids pick up, not sitting down and having a lesson about you need to share and you need to be nice, but watching you share and watching you be nice and having them come with you to bring that meal to that new family. And remember when we had you know, a baby and everybody brought us dinner, or we laughed because before the pandemic we would make meals once a month for the needy people in Washington D.C. and my kids would be like, oh, I know you're making those brownies for the poor people. But I'm like, isn't that nice that we can do these little things? Or, you know, just finding small ways in your town, your family, your community to help others.
That's very true and very beautiful. I remember as I was reading your book and some of the stuff that you talked about that you guys like to do, or, you know, with the various ministries that were going on, thinking to myself, this is what it talks about in Acts of the Apostles, about how they may not have had a lot, but very much in early church, it was a matter of people, when they saw someone else in need, would sacrifice what they had to help out someone else. And it was so beautiful. And so reading about that in your book, it was like, that's how God designed it. It was just wonderful reading about that.
Oh, I'm so glad.
When did your kids start saving for their first car, since you guys pay out in cash?
Right. I would say my 11-year-old, my 13-year-old were just having this conversation. So they really just have a bank account, and every time, you know, they want to buy something, we'll be like, well, remember, you know, in a couple of years. So my 13-year-old just got money for doing yard work, and he's like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to go on my Amazon account. I'm going to find something to buy it. And I'm like, you know, well, that's fine. You know, we just broke our backs for 2.5 hours raking these leaves for an elderly man in our parish. And then his 11-year-old brother said, you need to stop spending all your money because you're going to have to buy a car in a couple of years. And you know, because all of our kids have really bought cars before they even had their license. So my daughter's going to be 16 in December, and she bought a car 2 months ago because it was a really good deal. And right now her sister is sharing it because her car got in a fender bender. But, you know, just having that mentality, saving, like, they're always saving for college. So it's nice when they can, you know, be mommy helpers or rake leaves. But it's also nice, and this just happened recently, is, you know, when somebody calls and says, hey, I need a babysitter, or hey, I need a mommy helper. And they're like, I don't really feel like it, Mom. I'm tired, or I have, you know, I want to go and play catch with my friends. I'm like, that's fine. You know, there's always somebody else in our house that's willing to take that job. And you know that there's a couple favorite families, like, next time the so-and-so's call, I'm taking them, because she always buys the babysitter Chick-fil-A and she always pays really well. So they all fight over that person. But I'll just say, you know, that's fine. Every little bit you put away is going to go towards, you know, your phone service, your car insurance, your college books. Is never wasted. And they kind of have a competition, like, well, I have $1,000 in my bank account, well, you only have $800 in your bank account. And they learn. Now, you know, I did say, and I just shared this on another interview, that, you know, it's kind of fun to have that Amazon account because each of our kids has a wish list on our account. And when they really, really want, like, that pair of shoes that they don't need, you know, we really are all big into wants and needs, I'll say, okay, just put it in your Amazon account in your box. And then when your birthday comes, you know, if you still want them, you can ask grandma or whatever. And sometimes them just putting it in there kind of like relieves them of wanting to buy it. And then they think about it for a couple of days. I mean, that's a good habit for all of us. You know, just put it there. My daughter, who's 26, does that. She's like, I'll put stuff in there, and then after a couple of days, I even forget about it. You know, but we are so into instantly, and, you know, Amazon is a blessing and a curse. I mean, My son's like, I ordered a laptop at 7 this morning and it came at 3. I mean, this is kind of amazing. So it's nice to have that, but it's also dangerous. And I have one daughter in the book who talks about her online shopping addiction and how she really had to learn to do like these spending fast to kind of recalculate her instant gratification. So, we have to have accountability. So it's nice to have, parent, child, or spouses, and to say, this has been in my wish list, and when my Mother's Day comes or my birthday, this is the things I want. And then my kids are all minimalists now. It cracks me up. We have a house full of junk, and I'm trying to declutter, and I like stuff, and it's funny to watch all of them be so specific about, no, thank you, Mom, I don't want all that stuff. But it's really nice for them to have these like little accounts, because with all the brothers and sisters, when they get a birthday gift, they all pitch in and get them like one nice thing, like a really nice pair of hiking boots, or a really nice, my son just got a special thing for his bike. And so, normally not one of them is going to spend, $150, but all, 8 siblings pitching in a couple bucks here and there, they can get them all one nice thing. But if it's in that Amazon account, you're actually getting something you want instead of wasting money on something you don't want, don't need, and you're going to, give away to Goodwill next week. So
that is a really good idea. I like that about the having the Amazon account list, and then also the pooling together to get one really nice gift. That's a very good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, I noticed in bringing in like the faith, you talk a lot about how, the involving adoration and prayer. And in those times where you slip up and you spent where you probably shouldn't have, you talk about confession. And I really liked how you drew those aspects. So it's not like spending and living is in one area and your faith is another area. You combined that aspect too. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I just think, our faith is the center of our family. And, all of us are trying to have that be. And it's a struggle and to learn. And I mean, we go up and down in different seasons in our life, especially, I don't know who your audience rate mainly is, but, young moms and struggling and trying to just stay awake. And God is always with us, and we just have, just like finding ways of saving money, we need to find pockets in our day to connect with him and reevaluate our thinking. I remember the early days, just rolling out of bed and just sitting in a chair and maybe saying the rosary while I was nursing the baby, or listening to audio apps on my phone that had prayers. So they were praying and I was, trying to stay awake, and trying to find, it took me 17 years, I'm trying to think. It took me a long, so my son Joseph is 23. So I'm 50, turning 53. So it took years for me to find a really good adoration time, because I would always fall asleep. I would try 4 in the afternoon and I would fall asleep. I would try at night after the kids were in bed, I would fall asleep. So I would try in the morning, and then that was good, but then, nursing babies. And so it's taken me lots of years to find like Saturday morning, the earlier the better, because I'm a morning person, and my kids don't have school to, don't have to hurry up and get them ready for school or feed breakfast. These Saturdays are a little quieter in our house. So it takes a lot of times, change in, learning to recalculate, but just finding those pockets of time and finding like, when's a good time for you to go to confession. I think a lot of parishes are now, thank God, finally starting to offer confession at other times. A priest once said to me, I don't know why parishes think that the only time people can get to confession is on Saturday, at 3:00, because you've got birthday parties and you've got soccer games and you've got, laundry and you're cleaning, and who had that's almost the worst time ever for families, especially. So our parish priest is amazing, and he offers confession so often, and he'll do it like Wednesday nights. And so just trying to find a habit, build that habit, like whether it's first Saturday or whenever you go to, this particular place, you remember that, oh, they have confession that day. So kind of build that habit because that way it comes second nature. And same thing with adoration. But again, I used to beat myself up for years and years, and it took me so long to finally find, he was my seventh kid. So it took me, to my seventh kid to finally find that pocket where, even dads need to, or friends take turns. Like, I'll watch your kids, today, so I can go to adoration. If you'll watch my kids, take turns. It just be creative. And some people bring their kids with them, have a little goodie bag that's just a bag for adoration, or have a friend, or an older kid watch them at the playground while you're in adoration. There's so many ways. Just don't give up. And that's the big thing with everything. Don't give up with your finances. Don't feel like, oh, we're never going to get out of debt. Just little by little sacrifices. I talk about it in the book too, because I don't drink coffee, but I love chai tea. And I'll be, I have a really busy day today, and I have this gift card to, this Dunkin' Donuts in my purse. I really want to go get that big, chai tea. And I'm like, no, let me just say no today, and I'll save it for, another day. Or just learning to say no. I'm always big about offering it up, offer it up, especially when, I have that candle lit in my house. Offer it up for, Mrs. Jones, she's having a baby, or offer it up for, baby so-and-so, he's in the hospital. Having them be part of that. Like when during Lent, we had the parish mission had baby bottles. We were putting money in there for the pregnancy center in our town. But I had a big jar with the name of the family that I love so much, that I wanted them to know that this is what this money is going to. No, we're not going to go out to eat, and no, we're not going to buy that during Lent, but we're going to put that money in that jar for the such and such a family. And so they see it and they live it, and have them be a part of it. Like, you make sacrifices. Maybe we don't give our kids allowance. It's called living here. And but sometimes I'll say, for whoever cleans, does a special extra job, I'll give you, a couple bucks. Or my kids love like junk food and, chips and stuff like that. So one thing I have been doing at that little fancy fancy grocery store, like they'll have, like, a couple months ago, I got Pringles that were dented, and they were like 79 cents. And those little cups of bubble gum and other things. I got all this like candy and things. And it's because I'll say to the kids, I have this extra job. Do you want to do it, for a couple bucks? I'm like, no. I'm like, look what's in this bag. I got Pringles, I got Pop-Tarts, and they're like fighting over, no, I'm going to clean this room. I get the Pop-Tarts, I get the Pringles. So because you're not always buying that, it's special. So, that's another thing. Like, we buy, generic stuff. Like, there's no law saying you have to have, the special food in your house at all the times. Like, learning to recalculate your kids' thinking, during Lent is such a good time. And we just told the kids, during Lent, we made a lot of sacrifices with, video games and television watching and reading more and trying to pray more. And so on Monday, they were like, do we get to play the Wii today? It's Wii day, because we don't let them play on Sunday. And I said, no, we're not going to play on Mondays anymore. And they were like, but Lent is over. It's not. It's a Wii day. Mondays is a... I said, no, we're just going to, we have other things to do. Let's go read, or let's go play outside. It's spring. It's getting nice out. So that's kind of why we give up stuff for Lent, to kind of, in hopes that these good habits will kind of come with us, and that we can, be better and think more. Like, my husband and I used to just, at night after the kids were bed, we would just put the TV on, and we never really wanted to watch anything. It was just like, oh, let's just watch, TV before we pass out. And we stopped doing that during Lent, and we have been trying not to do it. And it's been great, because we're reading more, or I'm sleeping more, or meditating more, or getting to do things that I was just vegging out in front of the TV. So that's what Lent is good. And I think these habits that we get in, like you said, with our kids, and trying to find things, like when I fold laundry, praying for the kid who's wearing that item of clothing. I mean, I know that's an old trick, but just not forgetting that, why am I going to clean the dinner table because I want to serve my family, or I remember my least favorite job when I was always pregnant and nursing was like cleaning the high chair before you went to bed. It was like, oh, it's got, mashed potatoes on it and everything. But I knew a woman who kept miscarrying and couldn't have children. And so every night before I went to bed, I would just go and clean that silly old high chair. And that was how I prayed for her. Like and I didn't even really know her. She was a friend of my sister-in-law's, and she would get to 6 months and she would lose the baby. And that happened like 3 times. And I was like devastated. And I'm like, what can I do? I don't know her. I can't make her a meal. She doesn't live in my town. And I would pray for her. But that huge sacrifice of cleaning that silly old high chair every night was for her. And so finding things, connecting, suffering with this or saving money to do this. So we're not going to buy this, but then we can buy this.
What you were talking about just made me think of something. You were talking in the book about these spending fasts.
No.
Do you still do those, and what inspired them, and how do they generally go for you?
Yeah, so that was really interesting. That happened many years ago. So I always think of my son, Robert. God love Robert. So he just turned 21, and he was probably 13 or 14. And he was on the swim team. That's how I remember that. And we've always been frugal. I was always raised frugal. I just, you didn't have money, so you didn't learn to spend it. So, I always tell couples when they get married, it's a blessing to be poor, because when you start off with nothing, you learn to appreciate and you learn how to live like that, instead of starting off with double income, a fancy car, a big house, and then you have kids and you're like, oh, we can't afford this. Or, my husband always tells people, always put one spouse's money away. Like, learn, like if you're married and you and your wife are both working, like take one of the salaries and just put it in the bank, put it in savings, and learn to live on one salary. That's an easy thing to do. So couple friends of ours who are like, oh, we used to have everything. We had like $1,000 dog, and we would go on trips and we'd eat out like 3 times a night. And then we started having kids, and I'm like, oh, see, we never had money, so we never had to retrain our thinking. But it's just, it's so interesting how people, think about spending, and how you just, oh, we have it, let's spend it. So we'd always been frugal, and my husband and I had never heard of spending fasts. And he read an article, I remember it was like the end of June, and he was like, oh, these people don't spend any money for a whole month. They only spend money on gas and on like produce, things like milk and eggs and fruit and vegetables. And they eat, stuff out of their refrigerator and their freezer. Of course, you have to have that type of thing. Or some people do spending fast and just spend money on like gas and food. So he's telling me about it. I'm like, oh, that sounds really neat. I'm like, that would be so easy for us. We could totally do that. We're so frugal. Like I always have like gifts in my closet for birthdays that pop up, and we have a freezer full of food and a pantry full of food. It wouldn't be a problem. So he's like, okay, well, let's try it. I'm like, sure, I'm game. So we'll start it on July 1st. So it's like 3 days away or so. And the pool was open, and we don't buy food at the pool anyway. So I bring snacks and stuff. Well, it was a swim team, and there was a lot going on. We had a big swim team banquet where everybody buys like costumes and stuff. And I told my kids, no, that's not a need. We don't need to go out and buy, neon baseball caps and neon sunglasses and all. And they were selling the team shirts for like $20. And we don't need a neon team shirt. You're just going to, put it, it's going to be in a lost and found tomorrow anyway. I'm not spending all this money on this. And, we have, you can wear your yellow shirt at home, and you can do this. And my poor son was on a lot of my kids were on the swim team, but he was on the special team with the older kids. And they took a big picture, and all the kids are in their, matching shirts, and my son was in his plain yellow t-shirt, and he was just mortified. And he was like, why do we have to be doing this? Like, what? And he had the money in his wallet. And I said, I could easily just say, go ahead and spend your money on that shirt. Maybe it was $10 because he had $10 bill in his wallet. And I was like, but you know what? Tomorrow there's going to be like 15 of those shirts in the lost and found. And you're not going to care about tomorrow. But look, you're putting this money away. And like I said, he was probably like 13. You're putting this money away. And he was the only one of that whole group who bought their own car. And he was like, yeah, like that's right. And he even though he was embarrassed, he's like, this is making me stronger to think more about, spending. And he became, a finance major at college in the business school, and he's doing great. But we always laugh. And I remember they had this big banquet, and all the family was supposed to bring food, and everyone's supposed to bring 2 liters of soda. And that's just the way they do it every year. So I was like, shoot, I don't have any liters of soda. So I had lemonade powder and iced tea powder. So I made a big gallon of lemonade and a big gallon of iced tea to bring with us for our drink. And we laughed because there's a brick wall at the pool where everyone lines up their soda. So you had your Coke and your orange soda and your grape soda. And I laughed at my friends. I'm like, guess which one I brought? And then you see those 2 pitchers of lemonade and iced tea. And, but it was not only that, it was a good example that, we didn't need to have that soda. Obviously they didn't need, because at the end of the night, there was still like 10 gallon, things of soda left. It wasn't like we weren't participating. And we made a really great meal. I made big taco salad, like with the stuff we had in the house. So it was just really tricky. And we just little things like, oh, stopping by and oh, I'll pick up this, but we didn't need it. And it was really hard. So I suggested people, depending on their spending habits, go a week, do a week, or go a day. Like tell your kids, go a day without stopping by, 7-Eleven or Chick-fil-A or Starbucks or wherever. Just try one day and see how you recalculate, because it's instant gratification for them. They drive by and they see that Chick-fil-A and they're like, oh, I want, a milkshake. Or they drive by Starbucks like, oh, I want my such and such a latte, or I want my strawberry drink, or whatever is popular at the time. It's just retraining yourself. I've heard people do it for longer. We've done it. We did it for Lent a couple of years. It was great because it made us, like, I remember when we did it for Lent one time, my daughter does a lot of baking, and we didn't have something that she needed, but she went online and, if you don't have brown sugar, what can you use? And she learned how to make, the same recipe with something else. So it's, we try to teach them, you don't run to the grocery store for just one thing. We have a grocery list. And so, because then you spend more money. So just little things. And I talk about, I think in the book, like, all the kids love like pomegranates or mangoes or whatever. And they're like, Mom, go to the grocery store, buy me a mango. And I'll be like, okay, well, we'll see if it's on sale. And I'll go, and I have the flyer for next week. And I'll be like, oh, mangoes are $1.39 for one this week. But next week they're on sale for 49 cents. But, this particular fruit's on sale. Clementines are on sale this week, or strawberries are on sale this week. So I buy, because there's so many of us, I buy like, a big tray of them. So like 6 things of blueberries or 6 things. And then they'll be like, oh, I really want a mango. So next week when I go to the grocery store, I buy like 12 mangoes. Look, now you can have mangoes because they're on sale. So just kind of thinking like, you don't have to have the instant gratification right now, and they appreciate things. I was doing a special diet, and I would buy blueberries, and they were so expensive. So I would like have my name on them. Like, no one's allowed to touch Mom's blueberries. And, they're like $3.99 for this little pint. And I was like, oh, I can't believe, I'm going to buy that. Well, I remember going to Aldi's one day, and they were 99 cents a pint for those big, huge pints. I was like, oh my gosh. So I bought like 12 of them, a whole tray, and people are looking at me in the grocery store like, what's that lady going to do with 12 pints of blueberries? And I walked in the door and I said to the kids, you each get your own one. And they were like, it was like Christmas. We get our whole thing. And they just sat there and eating them, and it was so much joy. And I'm like, this is all over one thing of blueberries, but because they weren't like expecting it, like, you're my mother and I want you to get me blueberries now. Like, it was a treat. So again, getting them to rethink that it's not all about them. It's not all about getting what you want when you want it. It's about, figuring out when's a good time, or, waiting and learning to wait.
Um, so anyone who's interested in getting your book, where can they find it?
So you can pre-order it right now, and it will get shipped out on. I think they'll get it on Friday. So today is Wednesday. So yeah, if you pre-order it today, you can get it by Friday. But Amazon, you can get it from, and then also you can get it from Ave Maria Press. You can get it from whatever your bookstore of your choice. If they don't have it, you can ask them to get it. We have a website called fatsfam.com where you can get those free downloadables. You can reach me on Facebook under Sam Lancaster Fatzinger if anybody has any questions for me. Or I'm on Instagram under SamJMJ. You can message me there. I love talking to people. I love helping people. So, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much for coming on for this interview. And I have a decent audience, so hopefully they will be watching this video and checking out your book because it's a fantastic book. I do recommend it, and great job on it.
Thank you so much.